The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems, its message burning through hyperspace relays with the fury of a dying sun. Missing. The crown hatchlings of Emperor Zix Thera, last seen, Sector 7G mining station. Reward, 1,000. Planetary credits warning. Approach with extreme caution. The Dragon Emperor's wrath knows no bounds. Captain Alvina Reyes of the merchant vessel Lucky Strike nearly choked on her synthetic coffee when the transmission reached her bridge. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Emperor Zix Thera, the 17-foot-tall, obsidian-scaled tyrant who ruled the draconian imperium with claws dipped in the blood of 1,000 conquered worlds. His reputation for merciless revenge was legendary. Entire species had been reduced to ash for lesser offenses than losing his offspring. Raffi, she called to her human mechanic through the comm system, "You're going to want to see this." Raphael Santos emerged from the engine bay, his weathered hand still clutching a plasma wrench. At 52, he'd seen more of the galaxy than most spacers twice his age. But the concerned furrow in his brow suggested this was something new. His salt and pepper beard was streaked with coolant fluid, and his coveralls bore the permanent stains of someone who spoke fluently in the language of starship maintenance. "What's got you looking like you've seen a ghost, Captain?" Raffi asked, settling into the co-pilot's chair with a grunt. Alvina replayed the transmission. As the Dragon Emperor's holographic image materialized, all rage and terrible beauty, Raffi's expression shifted from curiosity to something approaching terror. "Mother of stars," he whispered, "those poor little ones." "Poor little ones?" Alvina stared at him. "Raffi, we're talking about dragon hatchlings, future world conquerors, probably already breathing plasma and plotting galactic domination." Raffi shook his head, his brown eyes soft with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "Captain, I've got something to tell you." 20 minutes later, Alvina followed Raffi to the cargo hold's maintenance section, her mind reeling from his confession. For the past 3 weeks since their stop at the mining station, he'd been caring for what he'd assumed were abandoned exotic pets. The mining station had been chaotic. A recent pirate raid had left half the docking bays damaged, and the station's security systems offline. "I found them huddled in the wreckage of Bay 7, Raffi explained as they approached a jury-rigged enclosure he'd built from spare thermal blankets and heating coils. "They were so small, Captain. No bigger than house. Cats shivering and scared. Their scales were dull like they hadn't been eating properly." The enclosure hummed with warmth, and as they drew closer, Alvina heard something that made her heart skip. Soft, chirping sounds, almost like songbirds. But when Raffi carefully pulled back the thermal blanket, she gasped. 3 small dragons lay curled together in a nest of soft rags, their scales shimmering with an opalescent beauty that seemed to capture and reflect every light in the room. They were indeed no larger than cats, with delicate wings folded against their backs and tiny wisps of steam curling from their nostrils. When they saw Raffi, all 3 perked up, their jewel-bright eyes, one sapphire blue, one emerald green, one ruby red, focusing on him with unmistakable affection. "Papa Raffi!" the blue-scaled one chirped in perfect, if high-pitched, galactic standard. "Food time?" asked the green one hopefully. The red one simply purred and nuzzled against Raffi's outstretched hand. "They can talk?" Alvina breathed. "Started about a week ago," Raffi said, his voice thick with emotion. "Smart as whips, all 3 of them. Zara here," he indicated the blue one, "has been helping me calibrate the navigation systems. Rex, the green one, has a natural talent for quantum mathematics. And little Ember," he stroked the red one's scales, "she's been composing poetry." Alvina sank into a nearby crate, her mind struggling to process this information. "Raffi, these are the Dragon Emperor's heirs, his children. When he finds out we have them—" "I know," Raffi said quietly. "But Captain, look at them. Really look." She did. What she saw weren't the savage beasts of legend, but 3 small intelligent beings who clearly adored the gruff human mechanic who'd cared for them. Zara was now perched on Raffi's shoulder, grooming his beard with tiny, careful claws. Rex had curled up in his lap, and Ember was showing off by breathing small, perfectly controlled puffs of flame that spelled out words in the air. "The transmission," Alvina said slowly. "It said they were missing from the mining station. But Raffi, what if they weren't taken? What if they were left behind?" Raffi's eyes met hers, and she saw her own suspicion reflected there. "The Emperor's known for his harsh methods," he said carefully, "even with his own kind." Before Alvina could respond, their ship's proximity alarms began shrieking. Through the viewports, she could see the impossible sight of a draconian, Imperial dreadnought dropping out of hyperspace, a ship the size of a small moon, bristling with enough firepower to crack planets. "Attention vessel Lucky Strike," came a voice like grinding mountains over their communications array. "Prepare to be boarded. By order of Emperor Zixthara." Raffi looked down at the three small dragons who had gone quiet and still. "Captain," he said, "whatever happens, I want you to know, these 3 weeks have been the best of my life." The boarding party that materialized in their cargo bay was led by the Dragon Emperor himself. Zixthara stood nearly 18 feet tall, his obsidian scales reflecting the harsh lights like black mirrors. His eyes blazed with the fury of dying stars, and when he spoke, his voice made the bulkheads vibrate. "Where," he growled, "are my offspring?" Alvina stepped forward, her hand moving instinctively to her sidearm, but Raffi placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Right here, Your Imperial Majesty," he said simply, and pulled back the thermal blanket. What happened next would be talked about in cantinas across the galaxy for generations. The terrible Dragon Emperor, scourge of 1,000 worlds, took one look at his 3 small children, happy, healthy, and clearly beloved, and his fierce expression crumbled. "My babies," he whispered, and when Zara chirped, "Papa," and launched herself into his massive claws, tears of liquid fire streamed down his scaled cheeks. The reunion was tender beyond words, but as the 3 hatchlings chattered excitedly to their father about their adventures with Papa Raffi, Zixthara's expression grew increasingly troubled. "They were not lost," he said finally, his voice heavy with realization. "They were hidden. From me." His burning gaze fixed on Raffi. "Human, my children speak of you with great love. Tell me, why did you care for them?" Raffi straightened, meeting the Emperor's gaze without flinching. "Because they needed care, Your Majesty. That's what humans do. Even knowing what I am, what I have done." "Especially then," Raffi said quietly. "Children shouldn't pay for their parents' choices. Any parents' choices." The silence stretched for long moments. Then Emperor Zixthara did something unprecedented in his 3-century reign. He knelt. "Human Rafael Santos," he said, "you have shown my children a kindness I had forgotten was possible. In my quest to build an empire, I had forgotten how to build a family. Name your reward." Raffi looked down at the 3 small dragons, then back at their father. "Keep them safe, Your Majesty. Let them be children. That's all I ask." "Papa Raffi visit?" Ember asked hopefully. The Dragon Emperor looked at his children, then at the human mechanic who had become their beloved guardian. For the first time in centuries, Emperor Zixthara smiled. "Papa Raffi," he said with solemn dignity, "will always be welcome in our home." As the Imperial dreadnought departed, carrying the reunited royal family back to the Draconian Imperium, Alvina watched Raffi stare out at the stars. "No regrets?" she asked. He shook his head, still smiling. "Captain, I just helped the most feared tyrant in the galaxy remember how to love his children. Humans don't get much more victorious than that." In the depths of space, 3 small dragons pressed their faces against the viewport of their father's ship, waving goodbye to the human who had taught an emperor the true meaning of strength.